This week's edition to the African American News. I'm your host for this evening, Brother James. My guest is the Reverend Reginald Tuggle of Memorial Presbyterian Church here in Roosevelt. Welcome, Reverend Tuggle.
Thank you very much, Brother James.
Thank you for coming out to our show this evening, and we're just going to jump right on into the interview. Um, what brought you to the Roosevelt Freeport area?
I came here 20 years ago when I was a student at Yale University pursuing a PhD degree in corporate social responsibility, looking at the whole ethics question of multinational corporate involvement in third world countries. I studied a year in Africa and Philippines and wanted to get more involved in that whole topic of how wealth is distributed in the world. And I came here to do some preaching at the Memorial Presbyterian Church as a state of supply. And I was going to stay, I thought, just a couple of years and then move on to another area. My goal in life was to be a college professor and a pastor at the same time. I never planned on staying in Roosevelt, but here I am 20 years later and I'm still here.
So you live in Roosevelt?
Well, I lived here up until 5 years ago, and I live in Freeport.
Freeport? All right, that's good.
But I pastor the church here, of course.
Okay. So what is like some of the agendas that you have for the communities of Roosevelt and Freeport since you're in the area?
Well, a lot of agendas. That's a big question. One of the things we've talked about doing is what we were doing, and I talked about 5 years ago. In our church, we established a manhood training program for boys. We're losing a lot of our boys to the penal system, to the judicial system, legal system, and we've all read the statistics about how 1 in every 4 African American males between the ages of 25 and 40 have been caught up somewhere in the area of the legal system. And so we began a program 5 years ago called Manhood Training Program, which is designed to get men to work with boys on training them or teach them how to become responsible adults. It's a 3-legged program. The first leg is to teach our young boys to be courageous. So when someone's talking to you, no matter who it is, you don't look at the ground, you don't twiddle your thumb, you don't shuffle your feet, you look them in the eye, and to be responsible. So that a teacher gives you a homework assignment and it's due in 2 weeks, what you must do when that date comes is not give an excuse, but give the homework.
How effective is this program to the youth in the Roosevelt community?
Well, for those who are active in it, it's a good program. But I just wanted to say that that's only part of it. We also teach them that they've got to manage their time, because your time is your life. And so every boy gets a Bible and a diary. The reason you have a diary is so that you can monitor how you spend your days. Because if you mismanage your time, you're mismanaging your life. And the third part of that is, no matter how bright you are, or strong you are, or healthy you are, you need God in your life to help direct you and give you focus and give you purpose. We have 42 young boys in the program, and some have been there now for 4 years. They're doing very well. We monitor their grades. We work with their parents, helping them stay on the good foot, as it were. And they meet every Saturday, and it's going very well.
Earlier in our sojourn as a nation of black people in this land of America, the church played a major role in the influences that it had on the young people, especially the black male. But as time goes on, church moved from, say, second to home to down at the bottom, where now the environment is playing more of a part in shaping the minds of our youth, and it's really starting to become a disaster. As you said.
I agree. I think that's one of the reasons why we're doing what we can to help influence our boys and girls in a positive way. I've got 2 daughters, and we began a program for girls 3 years ago called Charm, for the same age group, and for the very reasons you mentioned. There's so many negative influence out there in society that we need to counter that with some other kinds of positive influences that I think the church tries to fulfill and bring to the table.
How does the church go out into the street after, say, a youth that that's that won't take the time to go down, come down to your church, who rather enjoys, because of his shaping by the environment, enjoys standing out on the corner with his friends or doing something that's not as positive as your program offers. How does yourself and the people that you have working in this program, what are the means that you go after, and like getting these young brothers and sisters saying, look, this is what we can offer other than what you're living now.
Well, every program has limitations, and I don't think any program out there anywhere is going to reach every young person. Certainly, we're not going to reach every young person. One of the ways that we've done that is by word of mouth. Kids who are involved in the program, they go out and meet somebody else, and they bring them into the program. We had a successful case here. We had a lot of successful cases where people were involved in drugs or alcohol, and they get involved in the program. They get to know the Lord. They turn their lives around because they begin to see a different perspective. Does that work all the time? No, it doesn't work all the time, because the people who come in are ready to come in. If a person's on the street hanging out, that's what they want to do. And parents can't talk to them, friends can't talk to them, nobody can talk to them, and maybe even you've tried. I know I've tried, but until a person gets to a certain point in their life, in their development, where they want to really improve or change or make some major changes, no matter how much you talk or try to reach out to them, it isn't going to work. Until one day when they hit bottom, or one day when they get a new realization of themselves, they're going to say, hey, I'm changing, and I'm going to find somewhere to help me change and get back on the good foot. There are all kinds of good programs out there. And by the way, you mentioned something. You got a lot of parents out there who are trying to reach their own kids and can't do so. Because I don't agree with the myth that African American parents are irresponsible. That just isn't true. We're no more irresponsible than any other parents are. We, though, sometimes, as any other group, lose touch with our children in terms of being able to bring them back into a mode where the children can realize his or her own dreams. So we mostly do it by word of mouth. Back to your question, we do it by word of mouth.
We just have to like really concentrate now more so ever on our youth, rather than rather than hearing a lot of talk that you hear going around as saying that we're the youth of today is a lost generation. That's a cop out, and it's a cop out, and what it's saying to us as a people is we have no future. By saying that the youth of today is a lost generation, then that's only saying that we as a nation of people here in America are lost people, and if we don't go out and concentrate our efforts totally and really do everything that we possibly can to turn our youth around to our future, because we might look at it and say, okay, that's somebody else's son or daughter, but their lives are affecting our children's lives, and that's just the way it being. And I think we really have to like really concentrate and die for our children if we have to. And the program that you mentioned, it's funded, non-funded program.
We don't get any government funding. These are programs that are supported by the members of the church. We don't have any government funding in our church.
Another thing, we hear a lot of talk about your proposal to build a new Roosevelt Freeport health clinic. Would you like to?
In March of this year, we had heard that the county was going to close down the existing facility on Main Street for about 18 months so they could renovate it. The Freeport Roosevelt Advisory Board had gone on record many years ago wanting a new building, a two-story structure with proper setbacks to accommodate the clients and the patients who go to that facility. When we heard they were going to close it down for 18 months, we went to the county and made a proposal. And the proposal was that we would build a new facility for them so long as they would enter into a lease with us to rent space from us. And we gave them some other information about what we could provide, and we'll also take care of the health clinic needs, and they have the social services has an office there, so does the human rights child development has an office there. They will be maintained in the new structure. So yeah, that is our proposal.
Well, the services, will it return back to services for males also?
For what?
For males in our community?
For males?
Right.
What do you mean for males?
Will the men or the males in our community have the same access to the.
They've always had access. They've never not been. This is a community health clinic. The public has always had access to it. It's the same facility that's always been there. What we're doing is just giving them a better building, a state-of-the-art building. They're in a building now that's, by everyone's admission, is in deplorable condition. If you've been in there, you know what I'm talking about. It's awful. So what I'm saying is, the public is invited to go there, and they've been going for years. Men, women, and children. They've always gone. That's going to continue.
And in terms of jobs, what type of jobs will it bring into the community?
Well, first off, it's going to bring some construction jobs. Who knows how many, but it's going to be construction jobs. It's going to run about a $2.5 million project to build. That's going to bring jobs to the community. To maintain the building, ongoing maintenance, that's going to be jobs. You're talking about inside and outside the building. That's going to be ongoing jobs. And you're going to talk about, and more importantly, and perhaps the most important thing, talking about a local control. That is the corporation that I'm president of, the Memorial Economic Development Corporation. It's a not-for-profit organization. Is locally controlled. I mean, there are people from this community, from Roosevelt and from Peaport, on the board. And so that's going to be a major difference.
How long has this corporation been in existence?
About a year.
And the funding that you're looking for is coming from?
We have private sources. We have no government funding coming into our operation.
No whatsoever?
Not for the construction phase. Now, the county's going to lease from us. That's up to the county. But we don't have any government funding for this operation, for the health clinic.
And how will the health center affect the tax roll?
Well, that's interesting, because right now the property is owned by the county.
Right.
We proposed, if we're given the property, to put it back on the tax rolls and pay full taxes.
Full taxes?
Full taxes. And I want to make that point very clear, because people don't understand that. We figure conservatively paying about $55,000 a year, which comes to $1.2 million in 20 years' time. So that's taxes that the village of Roosevelt and Freeport are going to be getting that they're not getting now. So we're going to contribute that to the tax base, not reduce it. The whole purpose here, Brother James, is to make our life better, not to create a burden for people, but to somehow make our life better. So we want to pay our full share of taxes on that. I know we don't have to, because we're not for profit, but we're saying we are going to pay our full taxes on that property.
Is there anything else about the health center you'd like to?
Well, I think the thing that I would want to say is it's going to be a state-of-the-art facility for the people who use it. And by the way, those who need it don't have cars. They often have to get there by relying on a friend to take them, or a taxi cab or a bus. And so they're going to get a facility that's going to be one that they're proud of. They won't have to hang their head in shame when they go into the building. It's going to be a wonderful facility, and I'm very proud to be part of it. And I think the community is going to be happy to see it when it's all finished.
It's very much needed in our community.
Thank you.
And another thing that's needed in our community that I would like to talk to you about is more of a commercial base in our area. You know, the town is now in condemnation blight, as we're told. You know, where they had to knock down all the blight, and now they're discussing building certain businesses in our area. Have you been involved in talking with any county or town or state officials and bringing in any business of any sort
One of the
other
things-
than the health clinic?
One of the goals of our Economic Development Corporation is to create jobs and to create businesses that will create jobs. We had to learn a very simple lesson in our community, and that is we have to learn to become more independent upon ourselves. We can bring in businesses here, but we have to do it by careful planning and strategizing. And as you said earlier in the program, talk is cheap, and talk is very cheap. But the hard work comes in planning and to do it. We hope in time, as we grow and get stronger as a corporation, we can bring in some businesses into Roosevelt. Some businesses that might even, who knows, you got fast foods. You have that's an idea. All these things require money, at least some capitalization. But I believe this, that a good idea is harder to come by than money. So if you get a good idea that makes sense, one that makes sense for an investor, you can get a business established here. I really believe that. And so that's one of the things we want to get to down the road. Right now, our primary purpose is to get the health clinic up right at the moment. When we get that at least going, we're going to look to some other kinds of things to bring in some job producing or capital producing enterprises in our community.
There was a proposal brought to build more houses on our main street of Nassau Road. Clear out a lot of, well, most of our commercial district is gone already. But build, replacing our commercial district not only on Nassau Road but on parts of Babylon Turnpike and Washington Avenue, and tearing down commercial and building up.
I'd heard that. I've not seen the plan, but I'd heard that. Like people like yourself have said so. But I'm not talking to anybody in the county about that at this point. I keep hearing it as you do.
If something like that would happen, what would your views on that be?
Well, I don't know. I don't. That's kind of an interesting question. That's a hypothetical. If it happens, are there some businesses who want to come in here now and they can't get in because of the plan or something? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm saying if you have a town that doesn't have a strong commercial base, does it make sense to bring in, overflow of housing?
Well, it makes sense, and I cannot answer the question whether you've asked it. It seems to me I'd want to look at the taxes that are being produced presently, the tax that would be produced if you brought in houses, and the taxes that could be produced if you brought in businesses. I mean, if you're going to look at the tax base, you want to look at how is the tax base going to be impacted by houses versus commercial property.
One goes up, one goes down, right?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, houses pay taxes, pay property taxes, right? Businesses pay commercial taxes, property taxes.
Right.
Is the mix going to be such that you're going to have sufficient
I believe
property taxes to offset whatever business taxes that you might bring in if you have the businesses? If you have the businesses to coming in, I would say build the businesses. Maybe. I don't know the numbers on that. We'd have to look at the numbers to see what the advantage would be.
And then another advantage other than our taxes, you would have something that would provide a bigger service as far as jobs and income.
Yeah, I agree.
For our residents.
Yeah.
And
I guess my question would be: are there any businesses who are trying to get into Roosevelt who are not getting into Roosevelt? I mean, if you're talking about hypotheticals, I think that's what.
Well, I think if we you have a economic development program, right?
We're trying to get one.
Well, if there's a number of people in our town who are researching and looking into different areas. I think if we all start talking together and going after certain areas and trying to make Roosevelt attractive for businesses to come in, then I believe it's possible. I don't think that it's as hard as people say it is to get a business to come into Roosevelt. And even what could help is if businesses that are in Roosevelt stop being run out, because there's a couple of businesses in Roosevelt who have been targeted for eminent domain that's running people out, and that's not fair. Rather than paying someone a certain amount of money to move his or her business, and not giving them a chance to relocate in the town, right? Then take that money, give it to them and say, look, take this, at reasonable rates and enhance.
That's not being done? Obviously, what you're saying is not being done.
No. Okay. I mean, because we look around. I mean, we're right here on Nassau Road. If we look out of the window, we see a lot of empty lots now. And that's really a shame, especially in a town like Roosevelt that's really central and an ideal area for business. You know, because you have is a main road that leads
Yeah.
you to either a major parkway or a major expressway. Either way, you know, and then plus you're surrounded
I
by
think business
everybody.
could
This is an
potentially
ideal
thrive here,
spot.
sure.
And you know, I think that's one thing that we really have to like concentrate on. Roosevelt as a community needs to
I agree. I couldn't
link
agree
up
more.
together.
I
And,
couldn't agree more.
and it has to be a combination of residents, our churches, and then our little civic and organizations. Everybody has to sit down at a table and discuss our issues. And another thing, um, we can we can move on to my next topic, which would be the need for a community center here in Roosevelt. A community center that would provide services for our old and our young, recreational, educational, cultural, and all types of stuff like that that will offset and balance the 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 imbalances from the home, from the school system, and the far imbalance in just in the social aspect. You know, what do you think about it?
I think it's needed. I think it's needed, and I've heard talk about it now for months, and I'm in agreement with it wholeheartedly. And I hope one day we get a center. We need it.
What
What can I tell you?
what part could you play in helping getting a community center developed?
About $1,000,000 you could have for that purpose. You certainly could have it. I don't know. I could certainly help maybe put together some ideas on how to develop a strategy to go about developing an argument to shake loose some shakers and movers. I can play that role. Um, I guess like many of us, I don't have any money to put into it. We're all struggling on that side, but to the extent that we can advocate for it, I think there are sources out there too. We must remember, Brother James, that are not. Of course, the government sources, county, town, are important sources to talk to. Maybe in our area there certainly are, but there are other sources too we can explore. I'm talking about non-government sources that are out there. We have to make it somehow, though, appealing to them to want to do it.
Right.
Just simply asking for it is not enough. You gotta have some other reasons for it, and just to simply say we want to have cultural and we want to try to help cut back on crime and teenage delinquency.
If
You got to have a program to go along with that, and certainly that's important. I think that community center is very much necessary.
if you were from the outside looking in, what would make a place like Roosevelt attractive to you? What is your idea of an attractive Roosevelt?
Oh, gee, there are so many things that would make for an attractive Roosevelt. How much time do we have? Another 5 hours?
Let's just start with some of the
Well,
basics.
I think the physical appearance. That's one. I think is important. Stores, of course, within walking distance. That's important, but not absolutely essential because many people have cars or they shop Roosevelt Field or they shop elsewhere. So stores are important for people who like to shop locally. Some folks don't shop locally, but it would be nice to have some stores in the area. You want a place where your kids can be safe on the street, where your wife or your family could be safe on the street. I mean, that would make an attractive community to me. I'd want a community where the school district was top notch, where we're having kids taking the Regents and doing well in the Regents, and kids who wanted to learn and studied hard, and that would make an attractive community to me. I'd want a place where the leadership was strong, where and were responsible. I'd want a place where my children can interact with anybody and feel safe and feel welcome, and not have to worry about having their egos bruised or their self-esteem somehow challenged. I'd want a place where women are respected. I see too much where women are not respected, and that bothers me a great deal. So I want those are some of the things that would make it attractive to me. I can go on. But
But I think one of the things that would probably make Roosevelt more attractive if the community, um, we bonded. I mean, Roosevelt. I've lived here for over 20 years, and Roosevelt is a I believe it's a beautiful place to be. You know, it's just it's like anything else. Your home is what you make it. You know, we just can't say that um, whatever's affecting the other person will never affect me, because a person's problem may one day be yours.
without question. And I'm glad you mentioned that because we don't live in isolation. We all live interconnected, one way or the other. So my daughter, who is sitting next to me, although 9 years old, she's impacting my life and yours indirectly, and or some other person out in the street or the community. We can never afford to think that any individual lives in isolation, because that person, no matter what his or her age is impacting the rest of us in the community. Uh, that's it's just automatic. You can't. Nobody lives, as they said, on an island by themselves.
This current government that we have here in the county and the town, um, do you feel that they paid a lot of attention to Roosevelt and
I don't think they paid enough. I think I don't think they paid nearly enough. I think we need to reassert that.
Being treated like that, it sound a little bit like bad news. You ready?
I think that the government is responsive to the extent that we make them responsive, and I think we need to do more to make them more responsive to our needs and to our realities. But at the same time, though, I think sometimes we go too far, and we put too much responsibility at the feet of government and not enough in our own hands. And that's when I say we put the government. No matter what the government does, Brother James, they cannot rescue Roosevelt from ourselves. So I think we have to keep the burden and responsibility on what they can do and ought to be doing. But I think at the same time, we cannot and ought not relinquish the responsibility we have to our own selves.
that's true, but the two must work together.
Yeah, I agree.
And one respects the other, not a dictatorship. Not I'm gonna let this happen into your community. Why? Because I said so.
I agree.
You
I
know,
agree. Yeah, they can go too far with that.
Yeah. So, in the current election, a lot of spoke of the new government, the change. You know, the new Nassau County. You know, should we believe that there's going to be a new Nassau County, or even in his plans towards a new Nassau County, will it have a big effect on a big positive effect on our town of Roosevelt?
I don't know what his plans are for the new Nassau County. I mean, to say that you're going to have a new government is not spelling out what the new government is. I mean, I don't think you know. I know. I don't know what the new idea is, new plan is. I think we got to get details of what that new idea of government represents and what it means for Roosevelt. And I think we have to put those questions and get answers to them. I think Galata is a person who tries hard to serve the county, but I don't know his dream for Roosevelt. We ought to ask him what are his new ideas for Roosevelt. I'd like to know myself.
So, and I've noticed in just the past especially this past recent election, that the black clergy has been real supportive towards the Republicans, and yourself as a Republican.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why all of a sudden the black clergy is starting to be attractive to
It isn't all of a sudden.
Republican Party? Though, because if you trace back our history in this country, Republican Party really hasn't done too much for us as a people. Even if you go back and say, well, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, so it's not like he didn't free slaves because he wanted black people to be free. he was looking at the best interest of his nation. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't in our best interest that he was looking at when he freed slaves. So throughout our history, Republicans have not proven themselves to be, you know, our friends, if I can say that. So, well, you know, I just don't, you know, why all
I
of a
can
sudden,
answer your question.
why all of a sudden that the black clergy is all of a sudden trapped?
Well, first off, it isn't all of a sudden. It's been. Secondly, you have to look at issues in context. If you're going to refer to Lincoln, he was a president of the United States, and if you're going to look at it at that level, you have to say, well, gee whiz, whether Republican or Democrat, our lot in this country has not changed appreciably,
Sure.
whether you're Democrat or Republican. I mean, the reality is racism and the effects of racism have not altered our injustice, our poverty, our political impotency, no matter who sat in the White House. So I think it's wrong to equate Democrats in the White House doing anything for us. But on the other hand, in Nassau County, historically, at least for the past 25, 30 years, Republicans are the party in power. Whether we like their politics or not, they are the ones in power. And if you want something done, I wouldn't go to a powerless someone if I wanted something that required power to get done. It's like beating my head against the wall. I think over time, back to your question, whether you like the answer or not, I think.
I understand.
But I'm just saying that if you want something done, you go to the county executive. The county executive for the past 20 years in this county has been Republican. But Democrats have run elections. They've won some offices. They've lost far more than they've won. But if you need a garbage pickup, you're not going to go to someone who's out of office. You're going to go to someone who's in office, and who probably will win again if the election was held tomorrow. So what happens over time, Brother James, people gravitate towards people who can begin to help you do things in the community.
Rather than be I'm sorry, please.
So it's not so much of an automatic. It hasn't been a recent thing. It hasn't been a planned thing necessarily. Gallardo does things in the black community. Not all the things he should do, certainly, but he has done some things, and sometimes that's acknowledged and appreciated. So, you pay that off by support come election time. If he didn't do anything at all, then you say, well, he doesn't deserve our support, but he has done a few things.
So rather than, allow the county to use Republican, to people, as if it was a loaded 45. Why can't we, because of what's right, just be respected as who we are? If we choose not to join a party whatsoever, I mean, you're a young, intelligent black man and deserve the respect regardless of what political party that you join. And I just don't understand, why should we have to say, like, if this is the way, the ways to go to be as a Republican, when it's, I guess, to be in it, you got to be in it to win it. Like Lotto.
That's how the game is played. You don't have to be in it. You don't have to play. But if you're going to play, you got to be in it.
I think it's time for a change.
I think people make change.
Okay.
I think people make change, and I think communities create change. Again, this is, I think, a false premise that I think we as community folks fall into. We somehow think government changes us. That's not the way it works. We change. We set the agenda. I mean, it doesn't. I don't need the government to define me or to determine my worth. That's never going to happen. But somehow, we as communities have done that. We've allowed government to determine our worth and even to define our existence. That's wrong, in my opinion. I think that's putting far too much power in the hands of an entity that has no bearing ultimately on your worth or mine. The government is not going to determine my worth or my child or your worth. And we've got to stop that mentality of thinking that I got to go to the government to get change. That's nonsense. We got the change, the power for change, right in our own hands, in our own community.
Well, that's true. You have people who don't understand the process of the responsibility that people sitting in office have to us who vote them in, and people sitting in office realize um, that there are a lot of ignorant people to the fact of, look, they voted me, they control me. You know, a lot of people might just go out in November, press the button, vote for somebody, and then just go back and sit down and allow certain things to happen and not voice their opinions out openly or go out and do anything about it, but just sit down and say, man, I wish that wouldn't happen. You know, and government officials take advantage of that. So I feel that we just need to group together more and take control over our community and put, as we say, put elected officials or anyone who stands up in front of us and say they are responsible or a leader or whatever they want to call themselves. You have to put them in check and realize that you're only there because we put you there. And if you're going to be there, it's best that you start thinking in our best interest.
Even if they didn't win in our community and the plurality on the vote, the fact that they're there means that we are their constituents. You know what I'm saying to you?
Yes.
So if you have the election like the one we had recently in this county where Ben Zwern, he won Roosevelt. I mean, he got more votes out of Roosevelt than Galata did. Even though he didn't win the county executive seat, Galata is now the county executive. He is still our county executive, and we are still his constituents. So whether or not he perceives of us as having put him in office is immaterial. The reality is we are his constituents, and he is the county executive of the entire county, including Roosevelt.
Well, I thank you for giving us this time on
Thank
the
you
show.
for inviting me. I've enjoyed it.
We're really looking forward to maybe having you back out on the show again after the health center is in process, and maybe we can come and do some information.
Would you do that? I look forward to it.
We do some stuff on some of the stuff that you have going on inside the church, and we make this stuff happen because our goal is to build Roosevelt as a community.
Good.
And to get out the information to the people and what's going on in not only our community but surrounding communities here in Nassau County and across the globe. And once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Tuggle.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Once again, this concludes